Hello and good morning from Irvine, California. Welcome to the third annual Orange County 50-50 Women on Boards Conversation on Board Diversity. Hi, my name is Didi Shemke. In my combined career as angel investor, business owner, finance executive, and business leader, my most cherished moments are those where I have a chance to make a difference. Putting together like minded people to get behind an idea and to turn it to reality is a challenge that I look forward to each and every time. That is exactly what I get to do as a three-time chair for Orange County's 50-50 Women on Boards Conversation on Board Diversity. Thank you for joining us today for another opportunity to make impact. Whether you are a first time or returning guest, I hope that you will walk away with a golden nugget or two from your experience today. So, what's in store for us this morning? There are two parts to our program. Part one is a panel discussion where you will hear from our speakers and their personal experiences on their way to and while serving on boards, with timely exchange around this year's theme, leading the way to diverse and gender balanced boards. During this segment, we encourage you to use chat to share your thoughts with others. But in order to keep things moving, we ask that you save your questions for the breakouts. After the panel, part two is where you join your breakout groups for a more tailored discussion led by a sitting corporate director. Now, more on that later. So, now, as who's doing what, first and foremost, we want you to have the big picture. This will be presented by someone who really doesn't need any introduction. Betsy Berkimer Creder, CEO of 50-50 Women on Boards. She will share valuable information and insights about how we are making headway and the work that still remains. Following Betsy is our panel, a group of dynamic and inspired leaders. We will start with a message from Brian Nickel, CEO and chairman of Chipotle Mexican Grill. Then participating in our moderated discussion are Anna Khan, who took over her family business and grew it from a niche company to become one of the largest of its kind, successfully selling it to a public company. Diana Ingram, who has served on more than 5 boards, all starting with a LinkedIn connection. Anjali Joshi, who studied in India to be an electrical engineer, then moved to the US to become a top Google executive. So, what is the common thread among them? All four are change makers. But I am willing to bet that they started out no more as ordinary as you and me. At some point, they realized that they wanted to create something more. So they worked hard and became really good at what they do. Strategically network, and I underscore that word strategic, and strive to drive change. They were looking and continue to look for where they can make impact. Just like all of you who are joining us today. So listen closely to what they are about to say. Leading the panel discussion is our energetic, charismatic moderator. We are super lucky to have Amy K. Hutchins. And by the way, don't just call her Amy. She goes by Amy K. Amy K is an international award-winning speaker, trainer, business strategist, coach, and master communicator. She has authored 2 best-selling books and another new one on the way to becoming another bestseller. The books are Get It, 5 Steps to the Sex, Salary, and Success You Want. Amy K, that's a lot of S's. And The Secrets Leaders Keep. And the new one is She Gets It. She has hiked the Grand Canyon, rim to rim, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and believes that most personal conversations are vastly improved with a drink in hand. So let's all toast to that. As mentioned, this is Orange County's 3rd annual conversation. During this time, we have fostered collaborations and nurtured valuable partnerships with like-minded professionals and the corporate business community. So allow me to thank those who have shared in our success. Starting with our new and returning sponsors. We can only continue the conversation because of your generous and unwavering partnerships. And to everyone in our 2021 Leadership Committee, you have persevered to help achieve our campaign goals in the midst of your own life and work challenges. as we emerge from the constraints of COVID. As we end the first part of the program, you will hear from Patty Larson, my co-chair this year, who will briefly explain the breakouts and why it's critical for your total experience today. So let's get to know Patty a little better, shall we? Patty Larson is the founder and CEO of SunUp Group. In addition to being my co-pilot and running a company, Patty will chair the Board of Governors at the Center Club Orange County in January. We are excited and hope that this will help further solidify the special relationship that we already have with the Center Club as the headquarters of 50/50 Women on Boards in Orange County. So, what do you say we get this train moving and out of the station? So buckle up and give a warm welcome to Betsy Berkimer-Crudere, CEO of 50/50 Women on Boards.
Good afternoon, Orange County. So delighted to be here. I'm the CEO of 50/50 Women on Boards, and I thank you, Dita, for this warm introduction and getting everybody geared up for the big panel. Our goal is to reach 50% nationwide and even globally of all corporate board seats being held by women and 20% of board seats being held by women of color. So thank you to all of you who are here to move forward, to be part of this effort and to become board members yourselves. And I also want to thank Patty and the leadership committee for their hard work to bring today to reality. Orange County is one of 30 events that we are doing currently, all in 2.5 weeks here in November. And it's been quite a ride. And our global conversation includes nearly 6,000 individual registrants. And we have new events this year in Athens, Greece, and Toronto, Canada, added to our other international events in London, Mexico City, Madrid, and of course, the other cities that we are in, Zurich, will be next year. So I'd like to share with you how we get this job done. Quarterly and annually, 50/50 Women on Boards uses the data provided by our partner Equilar to release our Gender Diversity Index report. We analyze the percentage of women on boards nationwide by state and industry sector. We also report on the percentage of women selected for new board seats. And based on those who self-identify, we report on the race and ethnicity of all directors. Let's look at our year-over-year progress in the U.S. and in Orange County, in California, forgive me, of course. Here we are with the nationwide level of women who serve on corporate boards, and we are ecstatic that we have reached the level of 25.6%, and that women hold 25.6% of the board seats in the Russell 3000, and that is higher than ever in history. So our campaign is working, and all the efforts of you and our partners are definitely making a huge difference to advance women on corporate boards. In fact, as you'll see, compared to last year, we are 3 percentage points nationwide higher than we were then, and that is the largest year-over-year increase over the last 5 years. And you'll see that there are nearly 30,000 board seats of the Russell 3000, which are the 3,000 largest companies in the U.S., and women hold almost 7,000 of those, and that's what computes to 25.6%. But we are halfway to our goal of 50%, and it's going to take a lot of work to get there. We don't know if it'll be 5 years or 10 years, but we are going to make it. So in California, we are also ecstatic about the fact, if you'll see the last bar on this slide, that California, greatly due to the California law, SB 826, that California has shot past even the national level, and we are now at 29.3%. And that is 5% higher than almost 5% higher than we were last year. And of course, according to SB 826, by the end of this year, all companies are required to, all public companies in California required to have at least 3 women on their boards. And so that's quite an achievement that we've made it to 29%, and I expect by the end of this year we will shoot even higher. And the fact that 50/50 women on boards now tracks quarterly, we'll be able to have those numbers for you by the end, or as a result of the end of the year. So nationwide again, how do companies stand up? Of course, our goal is to reach 50%, which we call gender balance, and we're really delighted that of course our tracking is gender balance companies. We also track the number of companies that have 3 or more women on their boards, and those that have 2 or 1 or 0. So as of June 30th, we have nationwide, out of the almost 3,000 companies in the Russell 3000, 7% of them have already reached gender balance. So this shows that it can be done. And we know that more will be adding board seats in order to get to gender balance over the very near future. That means 215 companies out of the almost 3,000 companies in the Russell 3000 are already gender balanced. The other bar that's very important is the next one, that the numbers of companies with 3 or more women on boards are now up to 30% of the Russell. And that's quite an increase over last year, as you'll see the gray bar. And then the others are reducing accordingly. And the best number of all is that nationwide, the number of companies that have no women on their boards is reduced now to 4%. And we expect that to continue to decline. So really, really interesting, don't you think, for nationwide? And then in California, we have reached 10% of the Russell 3000 companies located here and headquartered here in California. 10% are now gender balanced, and that's an increase from 6% last year. Pretty cool. 56% out of the 536 companies here in California are gender balanced. Now, we in California have more of the Russell 3000 companies than any other state. We have more at 536 than even New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey combined. So it's logical that we in California would be the leaders, and is so important to all of you that you should be seeking corporate boards seats in California now. And you see the second bar as well, those companies that have already, as of June 30th, gone to 3 or more women on their boards are up to 42%. That's almost half of the companies in California. And the last bar is very, very happy. I mean, I'm very happy to see it, that the number of companies in California with no women, only 1%, and soon to be 0. So in the state, how many women is it going to take for our companies in California, our public companies, to reach gender balance? Not that many. From 817 to 1,400 women holding new seats in California. And the lower number is based on the estimate of women it would take if they are replacing a man, or he is retiring and she's replacing a man on a board. The higher number is if a woman is added to the board and a seat is added to the board to accommodate that woman. And in many cases, that's what we've seen in California, is that companies have added seat or seats to accommodate women. But I think, 817 and even 1,400, we can certainly achieve in the next several years. And let's hope all of you are among those numbers. So lastly, we want to share about the racial and ethnic backgrounds of corporate directors nationwide. Now, only recently has Equilar been tracking the numbers of racial and ethnic directors who self-identify. And only 17% of directors nationwide actually do self-identify. So we encourage more directors to do so. And out of the total 17%, 12% are people of color, and down to 4.5% women and 7.4% men, which is extremely low. So we encourage board directors to self-identify by claiming or creating their own profile on Equilar Board Edge. And you'll see that in the chat right now, so that they can, Equilar and we can better assess the racial backgrounds of corporate directors and develop solutions for underrepresented groups. So last slide to share with you once again a dramatic picture of the numbers of people of color on corporate boards. You'll see this broken down by the various racial and ethnic backgrounds, and women directors are of various ethnic backgrounds extremely low, and so are the men. This is quite a dramatic graphic difference. So we have a lot of work to do, women, but with that, I think we will, now that you know where we are, and the numbers are going to improve this coming year, so please stay tuned and definitely participate. So back to Amy Kay. I'd like to bring her on board to moderate our panel. Thank you, Amy Kay, for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Betsy. Those stats are absolutely intriguing, and it shows that the conversations that we're having have a positive impact, and that we have a lot more conversations to go, which is why I am so pleased to be here today to really kick off this incredible conversation that we're going to have today, this dialogue and discourse on having diversity on our boards. And we're going to kick it off with Brian Niccol. And I am so pleased to introduce Brian. Brian has served as Chipotle's CEO since March of 2018, and he's occupied the role of chairman of the board since March 2020. Brian is passionate about board diversity, and he's been intentional about ensuring that Chipotle's board is reflective of its employee base, which is made up of over 100,000 diverse employees working in 3,000 restaurants across the US, Canada, and Europe. 3 of Chipotle's 11 board members are female, and we are fortunate, truly fortunate, to have a CEO like Brian in Orange County who has made board diversity a top priority. So let's hear just a few words from Brian on the important role diversity plays in the boardroom.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be part of the conversation on board diversity. I think it's critical that boards make sure they are truly diverse and obviously have representation from all different backgrounds, female perspectives, male perspectives. People come from different experiences, and I think that's invaluable in the boardroom, especially with companies that are serving, other customers or employees. You want to make sure you've got the diversity so that you understand where people are coming from. At Chipotle, it's been a priority to have a diverse board. It's reflective of the diversity of our company. It's consistent with our values in our company. And it's also consistent with the purpose of our company. So it makes a whole lot of sense to ensure that we've got female representation, minority representation. We want to have that representation in the boardroom because I think it makes us a better company. It makes us a better employer. And then ultimately it gives us, I think, an advantage to provide the best possible customer experience. I've heard people ask, how do we find the diversity? How do we find more females for the boardroom? I think, you just have to make it a priority and put the word out that you're really interested in having those people join your board. There's plenty of qualified people out there that are also willing to do it. And I think if your company has the right values, the right purpose, you will attract them to be a part of your board. But sometimes you got to just also be very purposeful and say, we're in the process of doing this. At Chipotle, when we kind of said we wanted to work on diversifying our board, we just made it a priority. And I was surprised at how quickly there were candidates and really talented people available. Thank you for allowing me to join you all and share my perspective on board diversity. Enjoy the upcoming discussion and best of luck to all of you.
Brian, thank you. It is terrific to have you as an ally right here in our very own Orange County. We appreciate that. Well, now I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming and introducing three incredible panelists, three powerhouse women. We're going to invite them in. Each of these extraordinary women have their own unique story and individual board experiences, and yet they share the ability to generate impressive impact, not only in their careers, but also from their board service. Anna, let's begin with you. Anna Khan is well-versed when it comes to scaling and growth. From running a family business of 17 years to serving Fortune 50 companies, and with CVB Financial Corporation being ranked the #1 bank by Forbes 2 years in a row, Anna knows how to get results. She currently serves as the chairman, or shall I say chairwoman, of the board for CMTC, California Manufacturing Technology Consulting, all of which she's done while raising two incredible kids, now 15 and 13. Anna, I need a shot of caffeine after just reading your resume. Welcome. Diana Ingram, another powerhouse leader, is with us today. Diana, you do so much and you do it so well. It's hard, really hard, to encapsulate your 30 plus years of experience into a brief bio. So everyone participating today, I'm going to highlight just a few items from Diana's illustrious career, including that she got her first board seat through LinkedIn after thinking it was a spam message. True story. She can tell you about it. Strategic planning, cybersecurity, IT risk management, CEO recruiting, and leading successful turnarounds only begins to scratch the surface of her expertise and acumen. From a leading VP for IBM Latin America to leading Oracle Technology Consulting Services in Southern California to serving on over 5 boards. Yes, you heard that right. Diana is a font of leadership and board information, and we are so blessed to have you here with us today. Welcome, Diana. Angelina Joshi. We are delighted and honored to welcome you today, Anjali. Anjali served as Vice President of Product Management at Google for 15 years, where most recently she worked on products focused on emerging markets, search, maps, translate, news, finance, and other core products. Prior to Google, her career included serving as Executive Vice President of Engineering for COVID Communications. And before COVID, she was with AT&T Bell Labs. Anjali is currently serving on the boards of 3 companies, including Alteryx. You are one busy woman, Anjali, and we are thrilled that you prioritize time for us today. We're so happy that you are adding your wise voice to today's conversation. And this is exactly what we're going to have today, a conversation. So I encourage and invite each of you to jump in. I've got several provocative questions to ignite your thinking and all of our participants, beginning with, let's bust a board myth. Let's just dive in here for a second. What is one myth that you're either busting right now or that you think women are collectively busting as we currently speak? Diana, let's start with you.
Thank you. There are a number of myths, but the #1 myth that I've seen that is absolutely being busted is that you have to have been, or that you are, a CEO or a CFO to be on a corporate board. Now, certainly those skill sets are absolutely invaluable. Deep financial expertise, having run a large organization, run a company, absolutely are critical. But in today's business environment, there are a number of other skill sets that are proving to be critical, such as, I'll take information technology, the whole digital transformation that's taking place across so many industries. It's transforming the way that business is done, new ways of reaching clients and marketplaces. There are areas like human capital management, new challenges in terms of managing global employee populations, and this hybrid work environment that we find ourselves in. Enterprise risk management. There are so many areas that play to the strength of women. There are women that are leaders in these spaces like never before. And I failed to mention ESG, the whole area of environmental, social, and governance, another area where, again, women are very well represented, where there's so many women leaders. And so I'm just really excited about what this means in terms of women making those major advancements into the corporate board scene.
Yeah, and Diana, I think you bring up a really good point that we're looking so far beyond now just the C-suite and titles that I would ask Anna or Anjali, either one of you, to jump in. I'm curious, just kind of building off of what Diana said, what sort of skill sets that you have sort of surprised you in supporting you now serving on a board, or what skill sets are you seeing that you're like, wow, I didn't even expect that, but I'm seeing it now either in my own service or in the service of other women?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Thank you, Amy Kay. And I totally agree with what Diana just said. You know, I come from small business. A lot of people feel like you have to have that corporate background, Fortune 500 background. While that's wonderful and that brings a unique perspective, for me, I sit on a board that serves small business. And so having a small business background actually was an asset because I have the point of view of a family held business, and private business, small business, startup business, all of those things that are very representative of the clients that we serve. I didn't go to school for business. I had a very generic background. I had a communications degree that was incredibly difficult to find a job when I graduated. And I'm kind of a generalist. I always joke that you can always find somebody who's better at finance than I am. You can always find somebody with deeper expertise in marketing and human resources in IT in just about every area. However, I have a really nice broad view of running a company from kind of the vantage point that I've had, the opportunities I've had. And so I hear women talk about this all the time. Well, I'm only really good in operations, or I'm not really good at any particular thing, and it doesn't matter because all roads and both perspectives are incredibly important in the boardroom for us to have diverse discussions. And we count on each other to bring in those perspectives, and we count on each other to bring in perhaps a deep expertise in a particular area that I don't have. And so I think that's part of the joy for me and the excitement of working in a boardroom is I get to learn from other people and I don't need to know it all.
Anna, you bring up something that I think is really important, and I want everyone who's participating today to really think about what she just said. You are good enough. You are smart enough. You are creative enough. You don't have to know it all, but that's the beauty about getting on a board, is that everybody's got their domain expertise. Everybody's got their acumen. We're harnessing the collective intelligence. So if you've had a little bit of that thought, like, I don't know, this is the time to realize that we have many more seats and many more opportunities because there's a breadth of knowledge that's needed. Anjali, I'd love to hear your perspective on that as well. We're seeing the shift. We're getting out of the C-suite, as Diana introduced. What are you looking at as this new acumen that people are bringing to the table?
So I agree with Diana and Anna both, and I think they both brought great insights. One of the things that I'm seeing is actually the need for technology and technologists on the boardroom, because it used to be that consumer products were about consumer products and manufacturing was about manufacturing, but these days everything is about technology. Every company, from a small business to the largest of corporations, is about technology and the importance of leveraging technology in every aspect of the business. And previously, boards used to have investment professionals, they would have HR for comp committees, and they would have a number of different types of skills. And technologists and operators weren't as common on boards because that was never the focus. It was always about governance. But now, as digital transformations are becoming extremely important, having someone who's been through it, who is current in technology, in IT, in cybersecurity, and supply chain, and now blockchain and cryptocurrency, and having a knowledge of that has become really essential to having some perspective on those issues on the board, and bringing people in with different backgrounds, of course, with different business backgrounds, but also a deep technology background is becoming very, very essential. And that's what I'm seeing. And a lot of people are looking for that.
They are, and you just rattle off these words so beautifully, like it's a natural vocabulary. And I'm sitting like, slow down, Professor. That's great, Anjali. It's wonderful. I'm also, one of the things that I think that's really important for us to just acknowledge is that all three of you have tremendous experience, full stop. So if you were to go back, knowing what you know now, to talk to your younger self, what advice would you give a younger version of you to say, all right, this is what you needed to know back then as you sort of stepped or started looking into the board realm?
I can start. So when I'd spent many years at Google, and I was thinking, what next? And I wanted to see, what's the next step after having led teams, done products, and so on. And board seemed like a very logical next step, but one I didn't really know and understand. I mean, having made board presentations, I knew what my part was in terms of informing the board, but I didn't have a sense of what boards did. And so I think that at that time, what might have helped me was actually talking to people who'd been on boards, actually making more board presentations, interacting more with people who were either on boards or CEOs of other companies, to just understand what is it that people look for in a board member. And for me, who's been an operator for all my career, all of these things were new. So I would suggest attending events like this one and understanding what are the requirements for board members is very important.
And Anjali, can I just ask you a quick question? So as somebody who might be hearing that and feeling a little bit nervous or even questioning, like, how do you even do that? What's your advice for women to say, okay, if you want to go talk to somebody about what it means to serve on a board or get their insight, what's kind of the first step that you would take, or a really great way to approach somebody so that you get that yes from another board member?
It's so surprising. I always say yes to any woman, any aspiring woman who reaches out to me on LinkedIn. I just think it's very important for us to, one, have the confidence to reach out, and the second is to actually to actually reward people who reach out to us. So if someone says, I want to, I'm interested in your career and I want 30 minutes from you, I will do it. I prioritize it. And so don't ever feel like women won't or other people won't. We are all looking to give back. We're all looking to make the next generation that much stronger, better, and have greater opportunities than all of us did. And so I'd say my advice is, don't be afraid. I mean, the worst that you'll hear is a no, but you make it that miraculous yes, which makes you. And so go for it.
I love that. That makes my heart full to hear and be reminded that we really do have one another's backs. I love that. Diana, what would you add to that?
Oh, I think I couldn't agree more. There are so many angels out there just ready to help, that want to help, but they can't read your mind. So you do ask, and you ask for their advice, input, wisdom, and perspective. One of the things I did take care to do when I was in that process of just getting insights was to never ask them for something specific, like, oh, do you have a board seat or something like that. I wanted them to always be able to say yes. No one ever said no to sharing information, to sharing their wisdom. And I was surprised at how generous people were in giving of their time and very, very specific guidance. So I would just reiterate everything that Anjali just said, and just encourage everyone to ask, to reach out. That would be probably the one thing I would have done earlier in my career. And I did start out doing a lot in the nonprofit realm pretty early on. That was part of my plan, but I didn't really recognize at the time. I was sitting with people that were on corporate boards that it just did not occur to me to simply ask them. I did later, and I wish I had done that earlier.
That's awesome. Anna, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I have a lot, but but kind of playing off of as the ladies are talking, which is always so insightful. It occurs to me that same thing. I've never turned down a conversation from anybody that reached out. And so again, we do events like this and there'll be 50 people in the audience or a round table. And I've met just 20 incredible women. And I would say, and I don't know how the other ladies feel, but I probably only 1% to 2% would ever even reach out or even look me up on LinkedIn, right, to connect and have a quick chat or anything like that. So I totally agree. The kind of reaching out and making sure you do that is really, really important. But for me, I think one of the things that I really struggled with is what was my contribution? What is it that I can do? What is it that I can bring to the table? And sometimes an external perspective is really, really helpful, because I think we get into our own heads about what we think we can do, what we think we can't do. And sometimes just even sitting down with your coworkers, your boss, your peers, or reaching out to somebody on your LinkedIn, that a mentor, somebody you admire, and just kind of go, here's what I've done. Could you, from an external standpoint of view, an objective point of view, just point out a couple things that stand out to you? What is it in that is marketable, right? And what should I emphasize on? And is there any gaps that I need to be filling? I think the more you assess, and not just self-assess, but get that external perspective, almost like a 360 evaluation along the way, I think would be really, really helpful. And that has always been really helpful for me. And it's sometimes I've had conversations where somebody said, Anna, you're a real contrarian. And I thought, what?
I love it.
And I've never thought of myself as a contrarian, but the more I thought about it, well, yeah, I have a very unconventional path to the boardroom. I have a very unconventional background in my career and all of those things. And that's allowed me to think a little bit differently. Okay, well, what does that do? And what does that suit me for when I'm thinking about opportunities and how to build on those strengths, right? And so external perspectives, really helpful.
No, that's actually, that's brilliant, because it not only does it widen the optics about yourself, but it also gives you insight of how you then market and package yourself for that opportunity. We tend to sort of sometimes dismiss, and I think this is important for women to hear, is that we sometimes dismiss our own ability to be a strategic thinker, to look at things financially, operationally, culturally, to look at it, to be that visionary and the contrarian, and to have somebody say it's your thinking, it's your breadth of perspective, it's what you add to the richness and depth of the conversation that makes you so valuable that we often can't see for ourselves, which is why I'm going to start to move us into a little bit more of a provocative area. So for all of you who are watching, I think we're warmed up by now. So I'm just going to put a little wrench in the conversation. Betsy showed in her stats how much progress we've made. She also showed in the last slide how far we have to go. So I would love to hear and sort of poke the tiger a little bit on, what do you think from your perspective is missing in the conversations that we're having today that we need to add into the conversation to ensure that we continue to progress forward and get more diversity, more women on the boards, so that we can get these stats rising a little bit faster?
I'll jump in on that. I think one thing I have not seen discussed robustly are private companies. We're very, very focused on public companies, certainly here in California, but most companies in this country are private. And so there are many, many boards that we don't know what the diversity status is, but we can take a pretty darn good guess that women are not represented. And that's a huge, huge opportunity. And further, the role that VCs, venture capitalists, and private equity firms, their opportunity as major funders, as those that are providing governance to many private companies, that's another area, and I think an opportunity that we've really not really scratched the surface on in terms of understanding other factors and other catalysts for change.
No, it's excellent. Let's keep going with that, because that's a really good point. There are tons of opportunities there.
Right. One idea I'd like to add, and just from very recent experience, what I've seen is that there are cliques and there are networks, and men are such naturally connected people within those. And what I've noticed among women is we don't have these networks. We haven't put the time and the effort in because of our multiple activities that we've had to do through our lives, and we just aren't that connected. And so I would say that we need to make an effort to actually connect, support each other, think of each other. So when there is a board opening, think of the people that you can reach out to and say, hey, do you know a woman who would be a good fit for this board. So make our own networks. I think we've spent a lot of time trying to get into those networks, and that's been really slow because those networks are well established. They have their protocols, they have their communications, they have their avenues, they have their, they have their social things going on. And we just have to make a concerted effort to make these women's networks of women like us, senior women, who can both help each other as well as others who are now coming up in their careers.
I think that's true. I think one of the things that was so empowering for me when I saw the international conversation that we had a little over a week ago that sort of launched this incredible initiative. And I know that Betsy was doing London and Boston today. She's getting all 30 of these events in. But one of the things that I loved about the international conversation was that there were over 1,000 women participating that day from around the globe. And one of the things that they were all asking is, or commenting on, was staying connected. So to build these relationships and to build this network, because we're already a part of the conversation. So then weaving that conversation, that desire, that passion back in and staying connected builds that network. So Anjali, I think you bring up a really good point that it isn't a one and done. It's just the beginning. Today's just the beginning of a conversation and a new relationship. All right, Anna, I'll pull you in on this one.
Well, and I totally agree with Diana and Anjali here. But I think also I want to put it out there. My biggest advocates are the men in the room, actually. And I think that doesn't get said a lot. My mentors in the boardroom are actually the two oldest white men in the boardroom. And sometimes I think they get a bad rap and we feel like, I think they are more for us than against us a lot of times. And I think that's important to put out there, that there's a lot of allies out there. We just saw Brian. It takes everybody to kind of push this initiative forward. And given that they are 70% of the boardroom as it is, your network has to include that, right? You cannot have your network only exclusive or concentrated on kind of the 30%, 20% or whatever, the less minor. It really has to be a global conversation. It has to be kind of rising everybody to bringing everybody to the table. If we were truly honoring diversity, then that is, we have to think of it, I think, in a broader view. And I think we get better and more done if we brought everybody to the table, including those white males around the table. And I'd say they make them your friends, right? And they have a lot to offer as well. So I don't want to come at this with a antagonist standpoint of view at all. And I don't think that is the intention most of the time. But I think it needs to be said more often than not, that they are more for us than you realize.
Well, and I think, Anna, you bring up a really good point too, is that there are plenty of men who are progressive and are inclusive, and we need to thank them. And then those who are not, rather than getting angry, we need to educate. That's how we need to approach those conversations, is to show them the impact of what being inclusive and bringing minorities on boards can do to expand the thinking.
And I love the opportunity that when we do, they recognize our value.
Yes.
They really do. And I think that's really, really rewarding when they see. A lot of times I find it's not because they don't want to, it's because they don't know how. And to your point, Enrique, it is about education, and it's just about putting those ideas in front of them, right? That, hey, I am looking, or hey, how about so-and-so whose background, I think would be a great fit, and bringing those conversations to the table. I find all my board members from all backgrounds across all the boards I serve on are all incredibly supportive. They just don't always know where to go look.
Right. But I think that goes back to the question you posed earlier, Amy Kay, about that led to our discussion about letting others know and reaching out. There are some very natural conversations that can be had, to your point, Anna, as you cultivate your networks, as the support that you're getting, if you're in a company from those senior executives there, having those dialogues, I think, starts this whole process that you're describing, and making it collaborative, making it an opportunity, and not, making any sort of negative assumption, about any constituency.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. And my point was not so much to not so much to not thank the men, because most of my career opportunities, as well as my board opportunities, have come from these men allies. And it's great to work with them. But I think what I was trying to say is that we all need to raise ourselves. I mean, we need to rise ourselves. We are great at getting the opportunities and taking them and being very successful at them, but we ourselves need to be in a position to give these opportunities as well. So we need to raise ourselves to these positions of being chairs of boards, being chairs of committees, being at the top of the organization. So we don't have to get these opportunities. Obviously, we do get them, but we also should be in a position to give these opportunities to both men and women who we think are capable. So I would say we all need to rise.
We do. Anjali, that's beautiful. And we need to honor the worth of all of our voices for sure. And I think that, that's something that's been a big deal to me when they say, oh, women need to find their voice. We know exactly where our voice is. We just need to use it. We absolutely need to use it. And just kind of because we're having a little bit of that slant right now, I would be curious, have any of you had sort of a surprising mentor or a coach or somebody that came out of kind of from an unexpected place to really support you in your career and board growth?
I wouldn't say, I mean, I have had surprising mentors and these are people normally who've actually worked for me rather than being my managers. And what I've found is that by listening to them, saw things in a completely different light. I mean, we all get caught up in our own ways, and then someone really young comes along and they see things in very different ways. And it happened to me at Google, and one of the youngest persons on my team, he was 22 years old, he just looked at things so differently. And I'm like, oh, it had shattered a lot of my own, assumptions. And it just was, I wouldn't say he was a mentor or anything, but, in the sense that mentors teach you a different way of looking at things. They teach you how to elevate yourself and elevate our thinking. I would say it was kind of unexpected, but certainly extremely valuable. So my theory now is that listen to the younger people, because wisdom comes from all sides, and we shouldn't just think that people who have more experience and more wisdom. Sometimes a bright and fresh outlook can give you wisdom that you otherwise would not have got.
No, that is actually a good reflection of you two, and keeping an open mind and being open to the younger wisdom. That's terrific. Anna or Diana, how about you? Sort of an unexpected mentor or coach or mentor, or excuse me, to get you on the board?
Well, actually, I have two examples. One is a woman that I had served on a nonprofit board with, and I didn't consider us particularly friendly, but I worked very hard at the board, was very active, and at a point, it was actually effectively the chair, the president of that particular group. And out of the blue, she asked me about whether I would be interested in a particular board opportunity. It was quite surprising. I had a high degree of regard for her, but she thought I was a really good board member and would be very effective. And she valued my IT background and cyber. And she said, "Gosh, I think that's exactly what we need to Anna's point, and to Anjali's point about IT and so on." But I would never have thought that it would have been quite so. She would have been quite so, how shall I say, involved and directly supportive to the point of really opening the door, which was just wonderful. And by the way, encouraged me to follow her as a role model, to do the same certainly with my network. The other, just as Anna said and Anjali mentioned, two silver-haired, white males, excellent coaches. Spoke to me very directly, but I was very direct with them in terms of asking them their honest perspective on me as a potential board member. And they were so supportive, gave me some very specific instructions. And I just did not expect the level of encouragement that they provided me. And I followed their guidance. It worked out really well, but I am really forever grateful. And now I recognize that almost anyone can be one of your angels if you simply reach out.
It's good. I'm hearing this theme. You got to ask, ladies. You got to ask. This is good. Anna, do you want to add anything on that before I throw out another one?
Yeah, very similar. I mentioned it earlier. My mentors on the board are my peers of the elderly persuasion, and they really did a wonderful job. I just they made me feel welcome and took me under their wings. And even as a non-banker, for example, in a banking board,
Mm,
um, I kind of looked at all with all the people with the finance background, and they have the banking background. They understand the regulations and all of those things. And I thought, well, I don't even know the industry that we're in, especially in the early years, right? As you get on a new board in a new fresh industry. I really had to struggle to find, okay, where's my contribution? Where's my value? And it took one of those gentlemen to say, oh, Anna, when you speak up, I listen because you're always bringing something that we hadn't
mm,
thought about before. Right.
love
And
it.
so just even the value of being from somebody outside the industry, we bring a unique perspective. But just him saying something like that was incredibly encouraging for me. And allowed me to continue to go ahead and speak up, knowing that it is a valuable conversation and things that I'm bringing to the table that perhaps they haven't thought about. The other thing, Angela, I love what you just said.
Mm.
As you were saying that, I thought, wow, my my daughter who's 15 and thinking about what she's going to be when she grows up, right? I think about that a lot when I'm doing these things. And as I'm in the boardroom, as we think about when we're thinking about the long strategy of any organization, the next 5 years, 10 years, the change, the pace of change in the world that they're living in, right? We're creating organization and we're kind of structuring and priming organizations with a view of a different generation, whether it's the
Mhm.
millennials or it's the Gen Zs that's coming on board, and so on and so forth. And what do they want? How do they behave? What it is that they value? All of those things, I do think. I think about her and her friends a lot, and I think about which am I doing her proud in a lot of ways? And how am I representing what her generation needs? Am I understanding what their needs are? And am I modeling what um, I would like her to see when she grows up, right? And how she should behave and what she can strive for in the marketplace and how to be authentic and own your voice and own your space and do it in a way that is contributing to the world. So I do think I think that's a great perspective, Anjali, that you brought up about we look up and we look down and
Yeah.
there's wisdom in both.
Yep. And playing that long-term game, man, of realizing that we are role modeling for the next, and we're hopefully giving them more courage and more confidence and giving them more opportunity. I mean, I mean, you all know me, it happens one conversation at a time. And that's why I kind of want to just bring us back to the theme this year for just a second. We all know it's leading the way to diverse and gender balanced boards. And we all recognize and applaud all of you for doing just that. As we continue to talk about board diversity, what's just something that you have personally witnessed, just for a moment, that you've personally experienced when you look at the boards that you've participated on and say, this is diversity in action. This is the beauty and the brilliance that comes out of having all of these different perspectives, as Anna mentioned, and not just a bunch of spreadsheet aficionados sitting around the boardroom.
I think one thing I'd say is that the emphasis on ESG and on the boards that I'm on on all three of my public boards, the topic of ESG was brought forward by the women on the board, and the men said, "Well, we don't know what to do," and the women said, "Okay, let's just figure this one out." And just the emphasis on on sustainability, on equity, on diversity, on good governance, and all of these topics that came up that were driven by the women on the board were great. That's what I felt like women brought that to the table and really ended up in a really, really good place when people didn't know what to do. So that was one contribution which I thought was extremely valuable. And I actually value very much the perspective because what I'm finding is that having a diverse board is bringing in diverse perspectives, and whether it's functional perspectives or whether it's just a human psychological perspective in terms of culture and diversity, or it's a technology perspective, or it's a workforce perspective, then just having different views around the table from different people has been extremely valuable.
I think when it comes to that, I can use myself as an example. with one of the boards, since I am the only person with any kind of information technology background, and I also have a specialty in cybersecurity. That was something that I think the board appreciated. Yes, it's something we need to be aware of and concerned about, but what exactly to do about it? And the fact that it involves the human side, the human factor, as well as the technology, and being able to have those discussions and making it real, being able to translate that into language that all the board members, which are primarily from the financial services arena, could really get their heads around. And what that resulted in was our team, senior leadership, taking steps to really bolster our infrastructure, our information technology infrastructure, and take steps to enhance our cybersecurity posture, which all happened before COVID and before our need to have everyone work remotely. So a number of the issues we might have had in terms of, gosh, how do you prepare users, all of our employees, to work from home safely and securely? We were already well along the way. So that was very fortunate. Again, just I think that that's what I do and have been around, and having the opportunity to share that and to put it in really business terms. So not so much the technical terms, but really relating that to business processes and things that we need to do. It worked out really well. And I think it's simply not because I'm a woman, but because I come with a different industry background and a different perspective on what needs to get done to advance the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those stories. For me, actually, I just have a quick kind of win to report. I just concluded last week, my last meeting. I'm actually stepping down as the chair and board off of CMTC. But I was extremely thrilled to report that my successor is the other woman on the board. And I like to say that she probably said, well, if Anna can do it, I can do it.
I love it.
She is more than qualified. And all of the other board members were absolutely thrilled to support her as the new chair as well. And I just, for me, that was extremely rewarding to just see that opens up opportunities. And if it's an example, then it's an example. And I'm thrilled to see that role will continue in the hands of a woman. So
that's a huge win.
Yes.
It's a win for all of us. Her win is our win. I love that. I love that. Well, I want to take in our last section of the panel. I really want to move toward advice, very, very concrete advice. So in real estate, we talk about it being location, location, location. And when it comes to board seats, as you all have said, it's relationships, it's that connectivity. And then I've also heard others say, oh, well, wait a minute, Amy Kay, if you're really going to get a board seat, it's visibility. And so, Diana, I would love for you to share your LinkedIn story. We're going to start there. I'd love for you to share that. And then we're going to spend we've got about 10 minutes left, maybe 11 minutes. But after Diana shares her story, I'd love to really have you all share concrete, practical advice, because I know that there are just women that are taking copious notes today and are very seriously and sincerely interested in getting a seat on a board. And so I want to end on that really practical note. But Diana, tell us about visibility with your LinkedIn story.
Yes, this goes back to the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. And I'd heard along the way how important it is to have your satellite in the sky, out there, broadcasting your experience, your interests, and so on. So interested parties can reach out and contact you. It was early in January of 2018 when I got an email indicating that I had a message in LinkedIn. And this person reached out saying that they were the CEO of Rexford Industrial, and they had found me on LinkedIn and thought my background was interesting, and would I, be open to having a conversation? Well, I thought this was one of the strangest emails and I figured it would be followed up with a request for me to remit money someplace overseas. So I ignored it. And then a few days later, it came back again. at which point I ignored it again after consulting with a couple of confidants. And, oh, that's so strange. That's weird. It's a fraud. I ignored it. Then when I got a call came in to me and our assistant said, the assistant of the CEO of Rexford is trying to reach you. Then I thought, well, okay, this is interesting. So I took the call, not really quite knowing what to expect. I did a quick bit of online research and I thought, well, I'm not from the real estate industry, industrial real estate. I don't know what this will be. When I spoke with the CEO, we found that it was amazing. We just connected on so many different points. His whole point of view, his whole personality, it was really, really amazing. How we had just such, I should say, similar views of life and similar experiences. So that led to my being one of the candidates. And I was not the only candidate. There were other candidates. It went through a process that lasted about 4 months of interviews and so on. They even brought in consultant to just understand, decision-making, personality, and all of that. But the punchline is that 5 months later, I was invited to join the Rexford Industrial Realty Board. But it all started with that very strange LinkedIn email that I'm just so grateful that he persisted. But that's my story.
I love it. I love it. So we need to answer those LinkedIn messages, but not give our bank accounts away just in case. No, that's good. But what I took away from that though is the fact that this is a respectable medium. That through social connectivity, through building relationships, through having an expanded and very well written and articulated and clearly presented LinkedIn profile, that's also going to set you up for visibility. So Diana, I will come back to you for some specific advice, but I'd love to hear from Anna and Anjali on if we're looking for practical advice right now, what are the top 2 to 3 things that you would suggest that anybody participating today really start to go do?
I'll start with my own story which is similar to Diana's, and how I got on one of my boards. And a friend of mine on a board that I was on couldn't make it to an event that she'd been invited to speak at. And so she said, could you fill in for me? And I had time and it was in Denver. So I said, oh, sure. And I went and spoke. It was a National Association of Corporate Directors, an NACD event in Denver. So I go speak over there, and a week or 2 later, I get a reach out saying, hey, would you like to join us on this board, or would you like to consider this board? And my point there was there were two things that were good here. One is my colleague on the board said, hey, could you sub for me? Which was really great. So I said yes, and then I went and did this event, which is the second part of it. So the 2 learnings from there is for me were, fill in for people, even though you may not have been invited. It's great, and then the second thing is go and do these events and join people and put yourself out there. And LinkedIn is fantastic, but it's really, really important to be out there and be visible, and just like at this event, and it's a lot of fun. You meet great people, you learn a lot of things, and out of these serendipitous things happen. So that's one piece of advice. I mean, the other thing actually I have for your organization, the 50/50 on boards, I mean, we are looking for diverse directors on our boards, and we end up going to all of the headhunters. And wouldn't it be great if we had just these lists of aspiring board members as well as existing board members who may want another opportunity? We could do this ourselves, and that'd be so great. So since you have all this data, I'd love to get my hands on it, because all the women that I've seen and heard on these panels have been so fabulous. I'd love to have to be able to nominate them to our boards.
Betsy, are you listening? Betsy, are you listening? We've got the best list of women around the globe. I agree with Anjali. Anna, what would you suggest that all of us start to go do in addition to what's already been shared?
Absolutely. Well, for me, when you said relationship and visibility, the word that popped into my head was intentional, 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 right? Along with the same theme that we've been talking about, be intentional about positioning yourselves in places of influence, positioning yourselves in the right networks, position your career to get the scope of experience that you need. For me, actually, one of the really turning points, and this is a really tactical thing for everybody to think about, was I love working off of my strength. And Strength Finders was something that really just opened up my eyes, and for me to be able to articulate what is it that I'm really good at. And so this goes back to that theme. Where's my value? How do I make sure that that is well communicated, whether on your LinkedIn profile or during your elevator pitch in that opportunity when that does come up? How do you articulate what is the value that you can bring to the table? For me, Strength Finders allowed me to do that really, really well. I'm really good at, I'm a learner. I'm a lifetime learner. I'm really good at input, strategy. I have certain themes around, and that gave me language that I could then put together and put on my LinkedIn profile or be able to have these conversations. So for those of you that haven't done it, I think that's a wonderful tool to start kind of really positioning yourself going, what is it that I do more uniquely than anybody else? Now, there's always going to be gaps, but I'm a big believer. You kind of run with your strength. You got to, if you don't know how to read a financial statement, I mean, there are certain criteria you need to have, right, to be able to sit on a fiduciary board, on a public board, private board. So make sure you're well versed and knowledgeable in a general broad sense of view, but that's not going to be what gets you on the board. You got to have a couple things where that is your strength and that's your new unique value, whether it's cyber, whether it's IT, whether it's human capital management, whether it's finance, audit committee, right? You got to have something that's kind of the thing that you bring to the table that everybody else would look to you for your expertise on. And that could be as specific as cybersecurity or as broad as strategic thinking, right? So for me, if you haven't done that, I highly recommend just taking the time and getting to really discover your strength. And I think that also sets a great sense of confidence in going, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was really good at that. Because you know what? It's probably so innate to you that it's second nature. You didn't even realize it was a strength.
No, it's a brilliant point. That's an absolutely brilliant point. Again, that sometimes, we're our worst marketers because we are too close to it. So I love that. All right, Diana, I wanted to circle back to you.
Let's see, just a couple of things I would add. I completely agree with the recommendations that have been made. One thing I would say, it's important to have prior board experience. And there are a number of ways to get it. It's nonprofit boards, advisory boards, advisory council. It really, I think, is very important to have prior board experience as you are preparing yourself to compete for a corporate board. One of the things that the silver-haired gentleman shared with me is that he said, you need to tell everyone you know. And we've talked about networking, but he took it to another level and described to me how he got a board seat from a chauffeur through a contact with a chauffeur. And how he was picked up by this gentleman every time he went to New York, who then happened to have another prior passenger who was looking for a board member. And so he passed on the information, he got in touch, and that was for a Fortune 1000 board. So his point was, you never know who knows who. And the other thing I would add is just to, borrow that phrase, just do it. I mean, we can get very intellectual. We can want to go to workshops and continue to hone our resume over and over and over and over again. Just get it started. And for me, what I knew, because this is just the way I work, I had to put a project plan together and say, okay, after the holidays on this day, I'm going to goof off and then I'm going to hit it. And I created an Excel spreadsheet with activities and with deadlines and with areas for notes, because that's the way I get stuff done. But I tried to make it fun too. So I guess the other thing I would say is, as you embark on this journey, it can be really fun too. It can be, you can make it really enjoyable, but you do have to get it done. So, so all I would say is be encouraged. We have so much to give. The corporations really need us. Marketplaces need our insights. And so please go and just get your journey started.
Oh, I love it. And I love that advice. This has been so dynamic and so engaging. And everyone has talked about the fact that we all need to take action. And so one of the things that I want to just sort of sum up beautifully is that when it comes to intention, when it comes to networking and how to talk about your strengths, as Anna pointed out, you can participate in the training workshops offered by 50/50. It's the Get On Board workshops. That's a Get On Board ! And you can check it all out at the website 5050wob.com. So if you need a place to take that first action step, really and truly, 5050wob.com, all those Get On Board workshops. And we've got the breakout sessions coming up where you can get a lot of participation and answers to your questions just momentarily. So I just want to close out with a final word. We've got 30 seconds. So here's what I want to know from you all. The three of you, and I am not blowing smoke, the three of you are so engaging and so dynamic and have all this incredible experience that I know that you're still passionate and curious about other things that are going on in your life now. So just invite us into your living room for just a second. Let us be a little bit approachable to those that are like, oh my gosh, these women are so amazing. Tell us something in your personal world that you're just curious or you're passionate about right now to make us feel like we just closed with our bestie. So Diana, I'm going to start with you. What's something that you're curious and passionate about right now?
Oh, well, gosh. It actually has something to do with a nonprofit board I'm on. We've just initiated a board DEI committee. And this is something that's so new. We're so serious about it. It's a bit overwhelming, but it's such an amazing opportunity for this organization. It's Goodwill Southern California, and for what it can mean for our communities. And I have just been so energized and inspired by employee teams who have come together, beyond their jobs to want to contribute to this and to want to engage with the board in these conversations. So I just think this is just such a monumental time. And I feel so privileged to have the opportunity. At the same time, I feel a bit overwhelmed, but it is such an amazing opportunity to contribute in such a new and consequential way.
Awesome. All right, Anna, let's hear from you.
Oh boy. So my kids is a big part of me. And I have a daughter who's going to be graduating college. She's on track to graduate college at 19. And I have a son that is autistic and probably 2-3 years below his grade level. The two kids have given me such a good appreciation of what true diversity is. And it's allowing me to rethink the definition of success, because they're going to take very different paths and their definition of success is going to be very, very different. And I think that's, for me, the passion project I have these days. It's not about are you going to be a board member? Are you going to strive to get that title? It's about, did you live up to your potential? And when that could be different for everybody. And I think the passion project for me right now is, let's not just say there's one path to get to success and there's only one way to define success. Is he growing? Is he making progress? Is he contributing? Is he kind? Is he gentle? Is she making a difference? Those are things that we are learning as parents. I'm learning as parents, and I'm having a lot of conversation about how do we redefine success for the next generation, and changing a little bit of the way we've thought about those things.
Yeah, an important conversation, especially as we talk about today, is how we, instead of comparing ourselves to all these other women, is comparing it to our own progress and where we've been and how we continue to serve and have an impact and grow our own legacy for our own right. I love that.
I think that's, to me, what diversity is all about, is appreciating that not everybody's going to be exactly the same and taking the same path, that there's only one way to get there, but we truly value what everybody brings to the table wherever they're at.
Yeah, brilliant and beautiful point. Full stop. So thank you for that. Anjali.
So mine is very different. I have started a company with two women who are both also in technology, and we must be the only technology startup with 3 women founders. And what we are building is a virtual space where women can gather, do activities, build a community, and make friends. And with all this talk of this metaverse permeating everything, we are hoping to build what we call a betterverse.
I love it. I love it.
And we are off to the races. We are funded, we are building, and we are really having a great time.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, I have no doubt that when anybody talks about any of you, they talk about you with the full, my gosh, that woman, she just totally gets it. And so we so appreciate you sharing your knowledge and wisdom and experience with all of us today. Thank you, everybody. Let's give them all a virtual round of applause. Hold up those hands. Give them a great big round of applause. Thank you to all three of you. And I'm going to pull up Patty as we can continue with this event. We thank our panelists just enormously. And Patty, it is yours.
Thank you, Amy Kay. And oh my gosh, thank you to our panelists. What an insightful and riveting conversation. I hope everybody took copious notes. Frankly, I couldn't keep up. But there was one thing that really stuck with me, and I heard it across the board, and that was we need to show up. We need to get it done. We need not be afraid of having those difficult conversations, and we need to raise ourselves. So that's my big takeaway from the day. I believe we all do that to some degree, but these ladies showed us how important that is. Now, in just a few minutes, we will have a chance to take this conversation to a deeper level in our breakout sessions. But before we go there, on behalf of our OC Leadership Committee, I wanted to say thank you to Dita Schemke. Dita has worked incredibly hard and worked to lead a tremendous event. And frankly, she's been an incredible chairwoman to work alongside of. For us, Dita really exemplifies that strong leadership, shares her passion, business experience, her wisdom, and she has persevered in putting this event together. So again, thank you, Dita. I also wanted to say thank you to our director coaches. These ladies have graciously given of their time and expertise and are here today volunteering to lead these breakout sessions to help us further this important discussion around board diversity. Trust me, you don't want to leave now because you cannot miss the breakout discussions. They have an exciting agenda planned and a thought-provocative discussion that you are about to attend. As a reminder, we have something very fun planned for this afternoon. At 4:30 this afternoon, Center Club Orange County, we will be having a networking and appreciation social for all of you that have attended the event. If you haven't already registered, please go to lcappreciation@eventbrite.com. Again, lcappreciation@eventbrite.com. What you can expect is we're going to have some light bites, wine, and really an amazing social time. So that's from 4:30 to 6 today at Center Club Orange County. A few tips as we embark on going into the breakout rooms. Reminder, so to access your breakout room, look over to the left of your screen. Don't go here yet, but just take note of these items. Look over to the left of your screen and click Agenda. On your agenda, you will see your breakout room. You'll want to click into that session and join now. This is how you access the link to your Zoom breakout room. And if you have any issues, no worries. Just send an email to events@5050wob.com. The email is located on the description of this session. Just wanted to say thank you for all of you joining today's discussion, and more importantly, for being a part of this diverse board movement and all the work that you're doing. If you're a woman in your mid to senior level career looking to pursue a board position, 50/50 Women on Board still has 2 remaining courses in December. One is the Path to the Boardroom on December 14th and Get on Board workshop the week of December 6th. As Amy Kay mentioned, you can find all of those links at 5050womenonboard.com, Path to the Boardroom, and Get on Board. So ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to working together with you to grow the important board diversity initiative. And I hope to see you at one of the remaining events. With that, let's make the transition into the breakout rooms to deepen this conversation.